I am Cassidy Monroe, a 32-year-old woman living in the charming town of Maplewood, New Jersey. My life here was pretty good, a comfortable rhythm of work and quiet evenings in my cozy apartment. I prided myself on my dedication, my sharp mind, and my knack for bringing people together, especially at my marketing firm. I poured my heart into my work, often being the first to arrive and the last to leave, always striving to make a positive impact. I believed in hard work, integrity, and fostering a supportive environment. I was a natural leader, not just by title, but by example, always ready to mentor a junior colleague or lend a helping hand. My world felt stable, purposeful, and generally very good. Then Evelyn Thorne arrived, stepping into the role of our new department head, and my stable world began to crumble. Evelyn was a force of nature, but not in a good way. She was a master manipulator, a woman who seemed to thrive on tearing people down. She would publicly berate employees, pit us against each other in cruel games of comparison, and shamelessly take credit for our successes while deftly shifting blame for her own failures onto unsuspecting team members. It was a constant barrage of negativity, a suffocating atmosphere that slowly choked the life out of everyone around her. I watched as my once vibrant colleagues withered under her constant pressure and fear. I, who had once been a rising star in the company, felt the insidious grip of Evelyn's toxicity closing around me. My usual spark, my boundless creativity, slowly dulled into a persistent ache of anxiety. I began to dread Mondays, the thought of facing Evelyn's icy glares and cutting remarks filling me with a heavy sense of foreboding. I knew something had to change, that this poisonous environment couldn't continue, but Evelyn seemed untouchable, a queen ruling over her own little kingdom of fear and misery. She was the problem, and she seemed entirely out of reach. Being someone who always faced challenges head-on, I tried my best to tackle the escalating issues. I attempted to communicate concerns about team morale to Evelyn, carefully framing them as potential productivity challenges, hoping she would see the logical benefit of a happier workforce. I even went so far as to try and shield my team from her wrath, taking on extra work myself, burning the midnight oil to meet impossible deadlines, hoping that by absorbing some of the abuse, I could protect those under me. I genuinely believed that if I just worked harder, if I could just consistently prove my worth beyond any doubt, Evelyn would eventually recognize my value, or perhaps even, miraculously, change her ways. But Evelyn didn't see my efforts as loyalty or dedication. Instead, she interpreted them as weakness, another vulnerability to exploit. She began to single me out, criticizing my work in front of others during team meetings, questioning my commitment to the company, and subtly undermining my projects at every turn. My once impeccable performance, a source of pride, started to suffer under the immense psychological strain. I began losing sleep, my mind racing through endless replays of our conversations, desperately trying to pinpoint what I could have done differently, how I could have pleased her. My appetite disappeared, then returned with a vengeance, leading to a noticeable weight gain that I hadn't experienced before. The vibrant, engaged woman who once loved her job became withdrawn, canceling plans with friends and finding solace only in the quiet solitude of my Maplewood apartment. I started experiencing panic attacks, a terrifying new sensation for someone who had always been so composed and in control. My doctor, seeing my rapid decline, prescribed antidepressants, and I reluctantly resumed therapy, feeling a deep sense of shame that I, a strong and capable woman, had been brought to such a broken state. Despite all my tireless efforts, the situation only worsened. Evelyn's targeted campaign against me intensified, becoming more personal, more relentless. Every single morning, a dense knot of dread formed in my stomach, a heavy weight that crushed my spirit long before I even left my home in Maplewood. Then came the day I hit rock bottom. One Tuesday morning, Evelyn called me into her pristine, too-cold office. She sat across from me, her expression unreadable, almost triumphant. With a cold, clipped voice, she informed me that due to consistent underperformance and a clear lack of cultural fit, my employment was terminated, effective immediately. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt a searing pain, a profound sense of betrayal so deep it left me breathless. All my sacrifices, all my attempts to improve the situation, all my hard work had led to this. I was discarded, humiliated, my professional identity shattered into a million pieces. I walked out of that office, past the knowing, pitying glances of my former colleagues, feeling utterly broken, like a hollow shell of my former self. The world seemed to shrink around me, and I felt a despair so profound I wasn't sure I would ever surface again. My once shining career, my financial stability, my very sense of purpose, all gone, seemingly because of one person's malice. I spent weeks in a suffocating fog, the anger and bitterness a constant companion, a heavy cloak I couldn't shake off. I felt like a helpless victim, and the infuriating thought that Evelyn was still thriving, still spreading her poison, still untouched by any consequence, was absolutely unbearable. Months passed. After a period of intense struggle and profound self-doubt, I slowly, painfully began to heal. I found a new job, a place that genuinely valued my contributions and respected my humanity, and I started to feel like myself again, the old Cassidy slowly emerging from the wreckage. But the bitterness, the deep, gnawing sense of injustice, still lingered, a phantom limb ache in my soul. One rainy evening, scrolling aimlessly through the internet in my Maplewood apartment, I stumbled upon something completely unexpected: an Etsy shop offering karma cleansing and justice spells. It felt utterly silly, almost ridiculously juvenile, but a tiny, desperate spark ignited within me. I didn't truly believe in magic, not in a literal sense, but I did believe in the immense power of intention, the universal human desire for balance and fairness. I found a specific spell described as a truth revelation and karmic return spell, explicitly stating it would not cause physical harm, but would reveal true nature and return negative energy to sender in a strictly career-related context. It cost $25. With a peculiar mix of skepticism and that tiny, flickering flame of hope, I paid for it, providing Evelyn Thorne's full name and a brief, heartfelt description of the injustices she had inflicted. I honestly didn't expect anything tangible to happen. It was merely a symbolic act, a cathartic way to release my pent-up frustration, to try and nudge the universe, however subtly, towards some semblance of fairness. Weeks turned into months, and I genuinely forgot all about the spell. I was too busy thriving in my new role, building a new, healthier life for myself. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was Sarah, a former colleague and now a dear friend who, to my surprise, was still working at the old company. Sarah's voice when I answered was hushed, almost breathless with a mix of shock and excitement. "Cassidy, you will not believe what just happened," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Evelyn, it all blew up. I mean, everything. Human resources got involved, a major investigation launched. So many people finally came forward. Everything you said, everything we all felt, every single instance of her awfulness, it all came out. The constant threats, the public humiliation, the gaslighting, the insane expectations she set, the cruel way she pitted everyone against each other. It was a complete reckoning, Cassidy." Sarah paused, allowing the gravity of her words to sink in. "They didn't fire her, but it's worse, much worse. They stripped her of her department head title, took away all her people management responsibilities, and reassigned her to a non-managerial, back-office role in a completely different, much smaller department. She's essentially been demoted to a glorified administrative assistant, stripped of all power and influence. Her reputation is utterly ruined. Everyone knows the truth now." A shiver ran down my spine, a strange mix of disbelief and a profound sense of vindication. It was exactly what I had wished for Evelyn's true nature to be revealed, for the negative energy she so freely dished out to return directly to her. The poetic justice was undeniable. Evelyn, who thrived on control and power, was now powerless, stripped of the very things she had used to torment others. I hung up the phone, a peculiar mix of emotions swirling within me. I was no longer consumed by bitterness. The deep wound she had inflicted had finally healed, and now, seeing justice served in such a precise, career-focused way, a deep, abiding sense of peace settled over me. I was stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I had ever been before. My new life in Maplewood was vibrant, filled with meaningful work, genuine connections, and a profound sense of self-worth. I had learned a powerful lesson. Sometimes, the universe, in its own mysterious, roundabout way, truly does bend towards justice, even if it needs a little nudge from a $25 internet spell. I knew now, with absolute certainty, that my worth wasn't tied to any job, any title, or any single manager's approval. I was truly empowered. As I looked out my window at the beautiful twilight sky descending over Maplewood, a small, knowing smile played on my lips. I thought about the Etsy witch, about the tiny flicker of hope I had invested in that seemingly insignificant digital transaction. Out of curiosity, I picked up my phone and navigated back to the Etsy shop, scrolling through the recent reviews. To my absolute astonishment, I saw a new review, posted just a few days ago, detailing a similar story of a toxic manager facing career consequences, a life turned upside down. The reviewer's name, clear as day, was Evelyn Thorne.